Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Director of Marketing and Communications at the Acton Institute, Eric Cohn.
This nifty portfolio thing I brought does not fit between the two microphones, so I am going to struggle with this for a moment. Good evening. As the big booming voice from the sky said, my name is Eric Cohn. I have the distinct honor and privilege of running the marketing and communications team here at the Acton Institute. If any of you were at AU last year, you may remember me from such stunts as FaceTiming my son on his birthday to have you all sing happy birthday to him. Don't worry, it's not his birthday. We don't have to do it again. That's not till Thursday. But I appreciate that from last year and want you all to know that. Did you all have a great first full day at Acton University? If you've noticed, as you're walking around, as you've been in classes, these really impressive young people who are helping us out with the conference, those young people are emerging leaders who are participating in the Emerging Leaders program this summer at the Acton Institute. And I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about that program. The Emerging Leaders program is our leadership development internship. It happens here in Grand Rapids. It's a cohort of 20 students from all around the world, which for us who work at Acton is a remarkable experience to be able to work with such incredible young people, not just from here in the United States, but really all around the world who bring such incredible diverse perspectives, faith traditions to the work that they do at the Acton Institute. It happens over 8 weeks in June and July, so a huge part of it is they show up at the beginning of June and a couple weeks later they're here helping out at Acton University. Applications for the Emerging Leaders program open in January, so they will open again in January 2024. The program elements, it's a very cool program. It's graduate-style seminars with scholars. They even dumb down the scholars part of it to let me talk to them about marketing. Networking with community leaders, and work experience furthering Acton's mission. They also get an opportunity to pitch pieces that they would like to write for Acton's publication, Religion and Liberty, and Religion and Liberty Online. So it's really an immersive program. It gives them a lot of opportunities to learn on the job, which is the best kind of internship. Anybody who's done an internship where you're picking up coffee or someone's dry cleaning, this is not that kind of internship. This is really an impressive one, I think, and one that I'm thrilled to be able to participate in as a staff member at the Acton Institute. You can learn more about that program by going to acton.org/ELP, and I think there's also been a slide up there where you can see other details about the program. So we encourage you to check that out. If you have friends, relatives, kids of that age, encourage you to take a look into that program. We think they'll get a lot out of it. I know that I get a lot out of it each year, so encourage you to check that out. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce our invocator for this evening, Emily Milnes. Emily is the Director of Recruitment and Program Relations at Pepperdine University School of Public Policy. She previously served as an immigration attorney at Eaton & Associates, specializing in forced labor and sex trafficking cases. She also served with the International Justice Mission in Uganda on a team of multidisciplinary specialists to enhance child protection and mitigating risk of sexual violence. She continues to work today as a consultant for NGOs on human trafficking and migration law and policy. She has a master's in public policy from Pepperdine University School of Public Policy, a JD from Oak Brook College of Law, and an LLM in dispute resolution from the Pepperdine Caruso School of Law, and a BA in English Literature and History from the University of Washington. Please join me in welcoming Emily Milnes.
Well, it's a pleasure to be together, and it is good to lift our hearts to the Lord. So let's lift our hearts to the Lord this evening. Kind Father, thank you for this day. It's a day that you made, and we rejoice, and we are glad in it. Thank you, Father, for each person who is in this room, for the families that they represent, for the communities that they represent, for the countries that they represent. Would you bless the work of their hands? Father, thank you for all who have served this week behind the scenes and continue to serve us. Thank you for this food that you have provided for us, and for those who prepared it, and for those who are serving it. We pray your special blessing upon them and on their families. And Father, as we turn our hearts and our attention this evening toward dark places in the world and shining your light in those places, we pray that your light would shine. You are the light of the world, and you have come. And you say in your word that you long to show compassion, you long to show mercy, and how blessed are all who wait upon you, the God of justice. And so we wait upon you this evening, and we ask that you would shine the light of your Son on our hearts and on our lives. God, that we would be able to carry your life and your light into the world around us, that those around us would taste and see the goodness of God in the land of the living. Father, I pray a blessing on each of the conversations around the tables this evening, that the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts would be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Eric Cohn.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed your dinner. If we could get a good round of applause for the staff here at DeVos Place, who's just fantastic. As I mentioned, and as the booming voice from the sky also said, I run the marketing and communications team, so it would be a crime if the marketing guy didn't come up here and plug a couple of things that you all should get or do. So the first one I want to mention is, if you've been to the bookstore, we publish this fantastic magazine called Religion and Liberty. And you have an exclusive opportunity here at AU to get 50% off a year's subscription. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone. There's a QR code you can scan in the bookstore. You can also go to acton.is/50. You'll get 50% off a year's subscription to Religion and Liberty. The new issue just went to press. It has some fantastic essays, including one from AEI's Christine Rosen, an essay from Jonah Goldberg reviewing Patrick Deneen's new book. We just had Jonah on our podcast, Acton Unwind, yesterday to talk about it. An essay from an AU faculty member here, James Patterson, as well as a sadly very timely essay on Cormac McCarthy, the author who just passed away a couple days ago. So I encourage you to check out Religion and Liberty. There are issues available in the bookstore, and again, you can get that subscription at 50% off. The other thing that I want to tell you about, and if you were here last year, you probably had an opportunity to see The Hong Konger, which is the documentary film that Acton released just about a year ago. Yeonmi was telling me that she was just in Oslo for the Oslo Freedom Forum that the Human Rights Foundation puts on. That's where we premiered the film a year ago. And I have had the absolute privilege as a producer of the film to travel the country and to other countries to promote this film. The pictures that you've seen that have been up on the screen, one of them was some of them are from the Tiananmen Square vigil in Washington, D.C. that I was at as well. That was on June 4th, of course. And it's also on Saturday, it will be 2 years ago that Apple Daily, Jimmy's newspaper, published its final issue. Jimmy's trial is coming up in September. At least that's when it's supposed to start. They've delayed it a number of times. We will see if the trial actually ends up happening. So this is still a very relevant issue. Jimmy's freedom is at stake. And I want to believe that the right amount of international pressure can do the same thing for Jimmy that it did for a lot of the organizers, student organizers at Tiananmen after '89 that eventually got them, like Feng Shuo, who was here last year, released from prison. So we want to keep the international pressure up on China for that. It has been an absolute honor to be a part of promoting that film. So if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to check it out. There's a card that is on all of your seats that you may have seen. It looks like this. It has a number of things that you can do that we encourage you to do. You can watch the film. We released the film a little over 2 months ago now. And it has over 2.5 million views now on YouTube. Over 2.5 million people have watched The Hong Konger, which we're just thrilled about. We want millions more, so we encourage you to watch the film. There's a survey, a short survey you can take after that that's important to us because it helps us know how the film is impacting the people who see it. We encourage you to take a picture if you've seen the step and repeat sign out there for the Hong Konger. There's a trailer playing by it. Take a picture, share the picture, use the hashtags FreeJimmyLai, FreeHongKong, let people know about this story, post to social media. The power of your voice, the communities and the people that you influence is so important. There are so many people who don't know about Jimmy's story, don't know about what is going on in Hong Kong. We encourage you to do so. Ben Rogers, who's interviewed in the film, says in there that of the national security law, which is Jimmy is going to be tried under, that this law is an abomination to the concept of the rule of law. It applies extranationally. So every day, as Ben says about him being in London and me being in Grand Rapids, every day in Grand Rapids promoting this film, telling the truth about what is happening in Hong Kong, what is happening to Jimmy Lai, I'm in daily violation of Hong Kong's national security law. I invite all of you to join me in being in violation of Hong Kong's abominable national security law by watching this film, by telling people about it, by telling the truth about what is happening in Hong Kong and to Jimmy Lai. So encourage you to check that out, and we're going to share with you now a trailer for the film.
He is one of the most important democratic figures in Hong Kong.
He knew he was in really grave danger.
He was shackled and perp-walked through his own offices.
How can you not be scared?
Jimmy's story isn't really his story. That is the story of Hong Kong.
We've never had a territory of 7.5 million people who have lived and breathed their basic freedom, having that taken away from them.
Hong Konger means determination, fearlessness, the belief in human rights.
Mr. Lai insisted on marching in front where the authorities could see him.
The Hong Kong police raided the Apple Daily compound.
He chose to stay in Hong Kong.
Their houses firebombed.
All I had this place gave me.
He's a legend.
I watched this man willingly give up the life of a billionaire to become a dissident.
This is a time for sacrifice.
He's probably the most famous newspaper man now jailed in the world.
It's a tremendously hopeful thing to watch a man that just will not give up.
I will have to fight to the last day.
So if you've yet to see the film, you can scan that QR code that's up there. You can go to freejimmylai.com and you'll be able to watch the film there. Again, please share it with people. It will mean a lot to us if you did. I now have the pleasure of introducing tonight's featured speaker. Before I get to that, I want to note, afterwards we'll have about 20 minutes for Q&A. We'll be taking questions through Slido. You can download the app for Slido in your phone's app store, or you can go to slido.com. You can submit the questions using the code AU2023. And we ask you to keep the questions as short and to the point as possible. We will try to get to as many as we possibly can. So I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's featured speaker, Yeonmi Park. Born in North Korea, she's a human rights activist and TED speaker. Grew up in a punishing society, but at the age of 13, she and her family made a daring escape across the North Korean border in search of a life free of tyranny. She chronicles this journey in her first book, In Order to Live, A North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom. In her viral talks, viewed online nearly 350 million times, Park urges audiences to recognize and resist the oppression that exists in North Korea and around the world. The BBC has named her one of its top 100 global women. Her most recent book is While Time Remains, A North Korean Defector's Search for Freedom in America. Both books are available in the AU bookstore. I encourage you to check them out there. I learned at dinner that, of course, while I grew up across the river from St. Louis, so I've certainly not fled a place like North Korea. But Yeonmi and I do have something in common. We both fled Chicago. Not nearly as an oppressive place as North Korea by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly not the idyllic place that one thinks of when they think of the concept of freedom in America. I had the chance to hear Yeonmi speak in 2014 at the Atlas Network's Liberty Forum in New York City. And again, for a guy that grew up across the river from St. Louis, who ran political campaigns, who worked for nonprofit organizations, it's amazing to hear the stories of people like Yeonmi and the people who are at conferences like Atlas and like Acton University, who while, I ran political campaigns in Illinois, we have our fair share of corruption and problems, not on the order of anything like people like Yeonmi have had to deal with in a place like North Korea. Her story is incredible, it's remarkable, it's an absolute privilege to be able to introduce to you this evening Yeonmi Park.
Good evening, everyone. Wow. When I entered this room this evening, I felt so surreal because when I was born in North Korea, I was literally born in the darkest part of the world. In the 21st century, not to even mention what internet is, we don't even have electricity. I have a lot of friends in New York who worships, the no impact to the climate and dreams of a day there's no more climate change. I would offer them, why don't you go to North Korea? Because we have Earth Day every day. And now here I am literally across from the country where I was born, standing here as an American bastard myself. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. When I was born in North Korea, I had to go to school like everybody else. And literally, the first thing that I learned was how horrible American bastards were. And by the way, this was one word. If we just said Americans, that would be too respectful. We would get punished. Even in my math book, it was like this. There are 4 American bastards. You killed 2 of them. How many American bastards are left to kill? I think it's thousands of us here today, right? Today I really want to talk about my second book that I'm drawing the similarities that I'm seeing in America and North Korea. And this is, I hope, people understand how North Korea began as a nation. In the 1940s, Kim Il-sung came to North Korean people, and he promised us this beautiful paradise. He promised us that there is no more poverty or rich people or inequality. He said, we are going to give you free health care, we are going to give you free education, we are going to give you free housing, and we are going to eliminate every kind of inequality, especially of the outcomes. For doing that, why don't you give us your private property, your land, your freedom of speech, and freedom of movement? Innocently, my grandmother generation, they did that because they truly believed in equity. They thought nobody should be poor, nobody should be rich. They thought that was injustice. The inequality was injustice. Once they gave everything to the regime, Kim Il-sung simply took everything from us and did not give us anything back. Instead, he gave us the most unequal society in the face of humanity. North Koreans are unlike Americans. We are homogeneous. We have the same genetics. We speak the same language. We are one same Korea almost for 5,000 years. After Kim Il-sung took power, he divided North Koreans into 51 different classes. So there are too many classes, so they divide it into 3 big groups. And usually in North Korea, it's a joke. The first group is what we call tomatoes. You are red inside, you are red outside. You are absolute perfect communist. Therefore, you're a royal group. The regime likes you. Second class is apple. You're red outside, but you're white inside. You're questionable. You need a surveillance from the regime. Third is a really screwed class. You're grape. You're not even red inside or outside. You're hostile class. Government gonna punish you throughout the generation. There's no redemption. There's no way of changing that status. I always say whenever I try to give a speech, I get nervous. And this thought of that, even if I say the wrong words standing here, that I'm not gonna be executed. But in North Korea, that's a reality. The very first thing that my mom taught me as a young girl was, don't even whisper, because the birds and mice could hear me. She said if I said one wrong word, it was just not gonna kill me. It was going to kill up to 3 to 8 generations of my family because of one wrong word. And does this remind you a little bit what's happening in America? What we can say, what we cannot say. People get canceled, people lose their jobs. By the way, this is how it starts. North Korea did not become that way. It was a gradual steps that regime took with us. And that's the end result when we start controlling the language and deciding what words is allowed to speak and what words is not allowed to be spoken. By the time when I was 13 years old, I really could not find any food. But I was luckily living in the border town of North Korea called Haesan. And there were some smugglers that were smuggling foreign films through the North Korean black market system. And I got to watch the Hollywood film Titanic. As a teenage girl in North Korea watching Titanic, I was utterly confused because in North Korea, there's no Romeo and Juliet. There's no love stories. There's literally no word for love. Kim Jong-un recently banned Mother's Day because he was afraid that if we love our mothers, we are not going to love him as much. So love between human beings are denied in North Korea. I never heard from my parents that he loved me, or my mom tells my father that she loved him. The only love when we were allowed to express was when we expressed our love for the dictator, Kim Jong-il. And in this movie, I saw a man dies for his lover. And that's when I got this glimpse of outside the world. And I decided to escape from my homeland. It was 2007 when I was 13 years old. And as you can see, I'm very small on my 5-inch high heels. North Koreans are average, actually 5 inches shorter than South Koreans because of malnutrition. And I wanted to go somewhere to find food. And that was China for me. Right before my escape, I wanted to escape with my own sister, but I couldn't go with her because I had a horrible stomach ache. So she escaped first, and my parents took me to a hospital. And here again, we are living in a socialist paradise where healthcare is free. In North Korean hospital, the nurse uses 1 needle to inject every patient. They use beer bottles as a drops, and doctors would not treat you if you don't bribe them. That's what actual free healthcare looks like. This is the last thing I saw from my homeland. We don't have indoor bathroom, obviously, in North Korea. We had to go to outside. After my operation, that did not even have any proper anesthesia, I would go to bathroom and there were piles of human dead bodies scattered. And then I saw these little children were catching the rats who were eating humans. And rats eating our eyes first when we are dead, because that's the softest tissue in our body. And my mother asked the nurse, like, why would you not take those bodies away? And she said, we don't have any gas to remove those bodies. And from there on, I knew that if I don't get out, that person was gonna be who is gonna be eaten by the rats. I crossed the frozen Yalu River into China with my mother initially. And first thing I saw in China was my mother being raped. So how many of you guys know about the one-child policy that China has? A lot of you. What a stupid idea. Government thinks somehow it's a good idea to control how many children people can have. The result of that dumb idiot policy that CCP implemented was 33 million of lacking of women. There are surplus of 33 million men in China cannot find wives because a lot of people were aborting girls and choosing to having a son because that's the only time they could have a child. And in this shortage, they buy North Korean women as their sex slaves. They sold my mother for $65, and then they sold me over $200. I was more expensive than her because I was a child virgin. And some perverted Chinese men liked the child virginity. So they gave more money to buy me. But being raped is not the worst thing that can happen to North Korean women in China, because there are 4 places that we end up. Number 1 place that we end up is to the organ harvesters. They buy us, they take our organs away, and they discard our bodies. Second place they buy North Korean girls are the brothels. They put a girl in a room, there is even no windows, and give her the drug because it's so painful, and rape her until 500 times per day. They don't last more than 6 months. Third place that North Korean women end up in China is in the countryside of villagers. The men cannot afford to buy one woman, so the village men chip in, and they buy one girl, and they rotate her to rape her until she dies. Luckily, I was bought by another human trafficker, and I didn't get to be gang raped. But I had to be his sex toy for 2 years, from when I was 13 to 15. 2 years of my slavery, I finally had a chance to live life with dignity. There were South Korean Christian missionaries risking their lives, came to China, rescuing North Korean defectors. And these Christians told me that there was a way to be free, and there is a way to get out of China. And this is the very first time I heard the word free. So I asked these missionaries, what do you mean that I'm gonna be free? What does that even mean? And how would you explain a concept of freedom to North Korean? They did a perfect job. I was a teenage girl, and I was very interested in beauty. So she said, sweetie, if you go to South Korea, you can wear jeans, and you can watch K-dramas, and they're not going to arrest you for that. And I thought, there is a world like that where human beings have a choice to choose their own pants and choose their own TV show, because these are the things where North Koreans get to even executed for watching a wrong film. Wearing a jean is a symbol of capitalism. They put you in a work camp. And they said, in order for me to be free, I had to walk across frozen Gobi Desert into Mongolia from China in minus 40 degrees. So in 2009, I took that journey. I gave everything I had, and chances of making me surviving that night in that desert was not even 1%. So, do you know how many North Korean defectors made it to America over the last 80 years? Just 109 of us made it to America over the last 80 years from North Korea. And I don't know what luck, what miracle that was. I survived that night. I survived the desert. And I was rescued by the Mongolian guards and sent to South Korea. And 8 years ago, I came to America. I came to America to study at Columbia University. You would think this would be the end of my story, end of my journey to search for freedom. And when I came to America, I found a very interesting country. I thought this country was the land of opportunity, the home of the brave, where the liberty bell rings, and where people understand that free discussion, the diversity of thoughts, is an essential part of living in a free country. And when I got to Columbia, my professors were exactly teaching the same bullshit that North Korean teachers were taught me in the same classroom. Thank you. Thank you so much. Literally, in North Korea, they say if we don't have electricity, they say because of American bastards and greedy capitalists. My Columbia professor was saying exactly the same thing. The all the problem in the world that exists today is because of Americans, the white men especially, and because of Western civilization, and because of capitalism. And the only solution to all these problems is dismantling American Constitution and dismantling capitalist society that we are having here today. And they even to the point saying gender is a made up, is a social construct. And I was thinking, even in North Korea, they didn't go this crazy. At least in North Korea, we know what woman is. And in America, by saying that, now I'm a bigot. And then my professor was saying, even math and science is made up by white men to control minorities. And this was the same lesson I received from my North Korean teacher. My North Korean teacher one day asked me, Yomi, what is 1 + 1? I said 2. And she said, you are wrong. My dear leader Kim Jong-il, when he was a child, discovered that if you add 1 drop of water to another drop of water, what does it become? It becomes bigger one. It does not become 2. That's how he proved that math was made up by the West to control minority people. And this same thing is being taught in American Ivy League University. I'm a mother now, raising 5-year-old beautiful child. And when I had him in Chicago, the hospital, Northwestern Hospital, gave me his birth certificate. And in birth certificate, it said, father was born in the USA. He was a white guy. And mother was a North Korean. And I was thinking, when North Korean women being raped in China and get pregnant and sent back to North Korea, they inject women's belly with salt water. They kick the woman's belly until baby dies. They don't believe in mixed race in North Korea. My son can only exist in freedom. Because if I didn't come to America, he would never exist. He would have gotten killed before he was born. And here I am, fighting for my freedom again. And this time, I decide to not run again. Because if America goes down, where do I go, guys? We cannot escape to North Korea, obviously. There is really, really no place to go. And though this is where it really bothers me, because tyranny always comes in a disguise with compassion. And people with good intentions believe this amazing story that, I asked my Columbia classmates, why do you hate America so much? What about capitalism you hate so much? Why they are in their purple hair, literally. Without capitalism, you think who's gonna make the purple hair dyeing color for you? Literally, I came to America, I go to try to buy my toothpaste. There's mint scent, complete whitening. There are dozens of different types of toothpaste and hair dyeing. Only in capitalism you get that choice. And they said, I hate capitalism because there's inequality. Look outside. There are homeless people and there are billionaires. Therefore, capitalism is so evil that we need to destroy it. And to a North Korean, for me, I was like, what do you mean you have a homeless? Like, you have a right not to work? In North Korea, if you choose to become homeless, what happens to you? They put you in a prison camp. They rape you, they torture you, and they kill you eventually. You have a right not to work. That's a sign of tolerance. That's a sign of freedom. Inequality is not the enemy. Poverty is enemy. And I hope all we can remember from North Korea example, when people buy this idea where government can take care of us, they can take care of our health, our children, our education. Governments are just collection of selfish people, a lot of them. And it is up to us to take care of our lives. And I really, truly hope that we do not take the path that North Korean people chose to take. And we can keep America as what it was, what it used to be. So thank you so much, everyone. And we have a Q&A section after this. Thank you so much. Thank you. No, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. We have Q&A. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Please, thank you so much.
Yomi, thank you so much for sharing that story, harrowing story. We're so incredibly grateful that you're here to share it with us, and you were able to escape a land of tyranny that I really think most of us in this country just can't fully imagine. Mm-hmm. And what caught me as you were talking is that what kind of opened your eyes to this is seeing Titanic.
Yeah.
So my first question is, how aware of culture like that, how available is something like that? How hard was it to be able to get a copy of a pirated film like Titanic to even be able to see? How aware of the culture of the rest of the world are North Koreans?
So I know that people know about this, me watching this Titanic story. So in North Korea, watching a foreign film is a death sentence. And especially if you give it to your friends. It's very hard. And actually recently, Kim Jong-un sentenced a 2-year-old to a concentration camp because the parents of this toddler own the Bible. So it's very hard for North Korean people to know about the world. And I actually never even seen the map of the world. I did not know that even I was Asian. When I was in North Korea, my school teacher taught me that I was my Kim Il-sung race. Did you know that North Korea has a different calendar system? North Korea calendar begins when Kim Il-sung was born, what we call Juche year. That's how isolated we are in the country. We don't even know, this is what shocks me when I came to America. Now they think I'm conservative and telling me I'm a racist. I'm like, I did not even know that what race was. They cannot be, I'm a racist at all. And like that, it's literally a different planet they're living in.
So I want to remind people, as you see the rotating slide up on the screen, you can submit questions using the Slido app or going to slido.com. You can use the code AU2023. We're going to try to get through as many questions as we can in the roughly 27 minutes that we have left to talk with Yeonmi. How is your family doing?
They got all persecuted because I spoke out against the regime. So this is a thing that North Korea does to control people. It's something called guilt by association. And the root literally taking place in America. I have a son who is half white. And one of the daycare we want to send him in New York City, they invited some transgender person came and then asking 3 years old, 5 years old on a podium to ask them, teach them about white guilt. If your parents own their own homes, stand out to really shame them about the privilege they're having. And like that, now my son, he needs to answer for the slavery that happened how many generations ago. Like that in North Korea is something called a guilt by association. If because you are simply associated to this person, you're guilty as well. And that's how they persecute all my family members through my mom's side and my dad's side.
I have to imagine that weighs on you heavily. The desire to seek freedom outside of North Korea, again, it seems that that's a horrible regime, but effective probably at achieving what they want, is that people won't do anything that would put that many family members in jeopardy.
That's why you don't see a lot of defectors speaking out. It's not like Cubans, Iranians, Venezuelans, they get out, they can speak out. Even though after they escape, they send assassins and kill defectors if they speak out. And like he killed his brother in Malaysia, Kim Jong-nam, a few years ago. Like that, after even escape to freedom, for North Koreans, it's not you're not safe even. Even afterwards, there are spies. And if you try to discredit the regime, they send assassins and they try to kill you. So I've been on the killing list of the regime for a long time right now.
A question from one of our audience members. In your darkest times, where did you find hope? Do you have hope for your country today?
To North Korea?
Yeah.
To me, it's like being optimistic or pessimistic is a really irrelevant question, because I know what's the right thing to do. That is fighting for these people. There are 300,000 North Korean women in China right now are trapped and under the modern day slavery. And I'm just lucky one of them got out and made this far. So I try not to think about is it possible or not. I try to think about what is the right thing to do. And that helps me with even dealing with the current America, because I see so many people are losing hope. Is the US even salvageable? Can we save our country? But to me, it's irrelevant. What is the right thing to do? We have to fight for freedom and our future. So that's what I'm focusing on every day. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think that's a good dovetail into another question here from the audience, which is what can people do to support resistance to the North Korean regime? Is there anything particular that people of faith can contribute to that? I think that's a drive for so many Americans who want to help. They hear stories like yours of what goes on in North Korea, what goes on in China, the story we've told in our documentary about Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
They want to help. What's the most effective thing that Americans can do, or people from anywhere can do, to resist the North Korean regime as it currently exists?
So there are many ways to help the North Korean people. You can rescue them. Like there are missionaries that I currently work with. And right now, so as I said, when North Korean women get sold in China, this one guy buys these women in his own property, and he impregnates them, rape them until they get pregnant. And then once the baby is born, he sells the baby. And these infants are sold to a porn industry. We don't even know where these babies go, but he does that. It's his own kid. And he's trying to rescue these babies right now. You can join his ministry and help these babies. But also, the core problem why North Korea exists as it is because of China. I've been having really hard time to get mainstream media attention for this problem, or the American politicians to pay attention to this. I mean, remember how Michelle Obama has no problem meeting girls who were captured by Taliban ISIS. American media, Hollywood has no problem talking about the girls suffering in the Middle East. But when it comes to North Korean women, they don't want to talk about it because they have so much business interest with China. And that's the same thing with the American politicians. They get so much support, and even Columbia University gets so much funding from China. So the accountability lays in CCP. North Korea cannot exist without CCP's support. They cannot even maintain the power 1 week without Xi Jinping. So if we really want to liberate North Korean people, we have to demand China to stop committing this crime against humanity. Thank you. Thank you. So I want you to, vote for the right politician that are aware of the cynical side of Chinese government, what a harm they're causing to the humanity. And we can speak to our corporations in America, our colleagues, because they don't know that China is responsible for North Korean human rights crisis.
Well, I'm curious about that. Why do you think Americans just don't really understand the seriousness of the challenge that China presents? We talk about this in the documentary as well, as one of the last notes that we hit in the film, is about the willingness to do business in China and the compromises that people in the West are willing to make with awful totalitarian regimes. In your experience being here in America, do we just, as Americans, just not take that seriously enough?
I think this is where I was very confused. When I came to America, I had a very different expectation of the world leaders. I thought they're gonna be better than Kim Jong-un, obviously. And I was...
Low bar to clear.
Right. I was really confused. I came to a time when Obama was in the office. He would not sit down with one single North Korean defector. And even Biden currently, right, inviting Dylan Mulvaney, like the transgender person, to come and talk about oppression they are facing. And they literally don't care about what's happening to Northern people. And especially North Korea is literally the United Nations, after they're conducting study, they said what's happening to Northern people is a modern day Holocaust. Holocaust is repeating again, and the world is denying it again. And I was thinking, they have the best intelligence. Why are they not doing anything about it? It really comes down to that. I think the leaders in America, they are also very selfish people, a lot of them. And they just thinking about their re-election, and they're thinking about their lobbyists. And those lobbyists, of course, make so much money through CCP. And they don't want American government to challenge CCP in any way. So that's why North Korean issues always get sided away, and nobody can hear about this, and especially even Hollywood. My movie, the first book, wanted to be adapted to a film, and then the Hollywood producer sent me a script, and in my script it says, China was my promised land. When I got to China, Chinese authority gave me protection and gave me refugee. And I asked this producer, this cannot be further from the truth than what happened. And he said, this is the only way we can make a movie about North Korea in current Hollywood. Because if the studios can make a movie about North Korea, but then China gonna drop in all that funding for other films, they cannot get funding for the future films. And that's when I said, I don't need to make that movie. So that theory is off now. And this is why there's no single movie came out about North Korea anywhere in the mainstream media.
You mentioned in your story that you encountered these Christian missionaries. Did you know what Christianity was when you encountered these people? What was your understanding, and in general North Koreans' understanding of faith, religion, Christianity, or otherwise?
So in North Korea, we cannot believe in other religion. As I said, there's 120,000. So North Korea has many types of the camps, and one type is a concentration camp where none of your generation ever gonna come out. There are about 120,000 of inmates currently, and 70,000 of them are Christians. It's the #1 most persecuted country for the Christian people. And this is what I learned later. So Kim Il-sung basically was raised in a Christian family in Pyongyang. And then when he became a dictator, he decided to become a god himself. And that's what the communism always do. They go after religion first, and the state becomes a god, right? They cannot compete with other gods. And then in North Korean, doctrine is literally like the Bible. When I met these missionaries, they were trying to tell me about God and Jesus Christ. I was confused, and this lady was telling me like, hey, sweetie, don't worry about it. Think of God as Kim Il-sung, who loved us so much. He's the supernatural God. He gave us his son, Kim Jong-il. He dies for our sin. His body dies, but his spirit is with us all the time. That's how he knows what we are even thinking in our head. And when we are die, we are joining him in a socialist paradise. So they copy the Bible. They even have their own 10 commandments. So North Koreans don't know about the Bible or just like any Christianity, but very similar doctrine that North Korea created from Bible.
A question from our audience. What is the biggest difference in your experience of mundane things, such as waking up in the morning between now and when you were growing up in North Korea? How is life different on an existential level for you?
I mean, first of all, if I wake up in North Korea, there will not be a central heating. There will be no mattress. There will be no shower. There's no bed sheets or like that. We'll be sleeping on a cement floor. There will be rats like swiggering on our ceilings. We don't have those windows. We don't have air conditioning or heating like that. And once you wake up in North Korea, every day is a survivor. That's why the regime is starving us. Do you know why North Koreans are starving? It's not like Africa or Haiti, the natural disasters happens that we are poor. Regime conducts more than, over the last 3 years, more than 60 missile tests over the last 4 years. Per missile test, he can feed 25 million North Koreans entire year. Nobody has died from starvation. If he did 4 less missile tests, the reason he keeps us starving is because then we don't have time to think about meaning of life and freedom. Every single meal is a survival and battle. If we make it today, we're gonna worry about how are we gonna make tomorrow. If we find the food for the breakfast, we're gonna worry about how are we gonna find dinner because we don't eat lunch in North Korea. And so just every day your energy is going into surviving.
So former President Trump quite famously was the first American president to meet with a leader of North Korea when he met with Kim Jong-un. Mm-hmm. There's a question from the audience that ties into that. What do you think when America engages in diplomacy with North Korea? How did you feel when you see the President of the United States and the leader of North Korea meeting in person?
So nothing is black and white. At the time he was meeting Kim Jong-un, I was very offended. Because I understand Trump. He's a businessman. He's not a politician. He thought he can make a deal with Kim Jong-un, like make him put his guard down, tell him that, we are nice people, Americans are not trying to attack you, open up your economy, get rid of your nukes, we're gonna help you build your economy up. But Kim Jong-un is a very logical politician. He was educated in Switzerland. Kim Jong-un knows how exactly human beings should be treated. He exactly knows how world should operate. And I thought Trump's intention was never gonna work because North Korea was afraid of Trump. Under Trump, they could not conduct any long-range missiles because Trump was talking about how my nuclear button is bigger than yours, remember? It's calling him Rocket Man. So Kim Jong-un was really trying to buy time of Trump era because Americans is a democracy. They're not gonna be in the office like him for the rest of his life. So as long as he's by this time, distract Trump, and then somebody weaker comes along like Biden, now North Korea fires missile every day. And Biden calls North Korea, he does not even pick up the phone. So that was his strategy, and I think that's when I thought the intention was good. But it would be having a bit more effective diplomacy if Trump was really pressing on China on the part. That not just only going after tariffs and the treaties, but talking about North Korean issue as well with China, and there would be way more result coming out of that.
I mentioned in the introduction that you and I have both are former residents of the city of Chicago.
Yep.
At dinner, Joni was telling me that your experience in Chicago was a major impetus for why you wanted to write this book.
Yeah.
Would you tell us about that experience and your time in Chicago and what motivated you to write this book, While Time Remains?
Yeah, so when I was at Columbia, I thought it was just, this woke religion. It's at this point a religion, right? Like, men can be women, men can be women. Like, if you repeat it 100,000 times, somehow it's gonna happen. like that. It's just, they just keep repeating it. They say, words are violence, words are violence. And they also say, silence is violence. And these all slogans are so like communist, in doctrine. I thought they're gonna get over it if they graduate from university, they go to the real world, raise their own family, start paying taxes, they're gonna understand how the world works. And one day I was robbed in Chicago during the BLM protests in the first year when George Floyd died. I was walking with my son in the Mission Avenue in the afternoon, like before 4 p.m. during the bright day. A few African American women takes my wallet and punching me. And beaten by these women in front of my son. And then I was trying to call the cops. Of course, I'm like being robbed and being punched. And then people circled around me and calling me I'm a racist because I'm trying to call the cops on these thieves. And they said the person's skin color does not make them a thief. And like, here I am. I was raped by Asian men. When do I say color has to do anything? Anybody can be a rapist. Anybody can be a murderer. Anybody can be a thief. Nothing about it was a race. It was just simply just two human beings, happened to be African American women, robbing me. And then I realized the madness of crowd. These people cannot be reasoned anymore. They lost the ability to think critically. They just simply see, at the moment was my skin color because I'm an Asian woman, I cannot be a victim, and these people who are harming me, they have the color of a person who is a victim, supposedly, and who is supposed to be oppressed, so I'm the one who is guilty. And that's when I realized this ideology is so deep-rooted than I thought. And we might be losing this country. So I wrote this book to really wake up American people, how many the similarities. It's in a way there's like dictator's handbook, right? They take these steps to get there. And I'm seeing those steps taken in America every single day. And some of the cities like Chicago and New York, way, way gone that path than here right now. But definitely we are in that direction. If we do not resist, we are gonna keep going this direction.
Did you see a parallel in the way that you just talked about, like, the way that mobs act, the way that they kind of get subsumed into one way of thinking? Did you see parallels between that and the way people are in North Korea, that this again is one way of thinking, part of this collective that doesn't allow for individual thought or expression in a meaningful way? Yeah, so this is to me is very interesting because this being tribal way of groupthink, it's in a way it helps you at Columbia. If you didn't follow that doctrine, you'd get persecuted, right? It's so convenient to believe what everybody is saying, then you are not the outsider. But the danger of group thinking is you cannot think for yourself. You cannot think critically. So for instance, when I went to South Korea, the South Korean intelligence were telling me, the Kim Jong-il, he's not a god. He goes to bathroom. And he doesn't starve. He is really well-fed, greedy dictator. And I was like, and he probably didn't shoot that round of golf in the 40s either. Right. And I was like, what do you mean? I thought literally Kim Jong-il, like me, was starving. That's what the regime told me, that he was starving like us, was not sleeping. He was working tirelessly for our people. And then he literally showed me a picture of Kim Jong-il. He's like, look at that picture. He's the fattest guy in the picture. How can he be possibly starving? But as somebody who in that groupthink, in that brainwashing, I was not able to see that he was fat. Somebody had to teach me that he was fat. And exactly like in Chicago right now, these people cannot see that I'm the victim, that I'm the one who's beaten up, I'm the one who's taking the wallet away from me. They are just believing this ideology where, oh, they are the oppressed and you are the oppressor here. And I think that's the real danger of groupthink, because you cannot see the obvious truth. You really can believe that, Kim Jong-un can read your mind. That absurdity is possible when humans join this group thinking. Anybody who speaks out eventually accrues critics.
Of course.
So in the course of you telling your story, I'm sure you've encountered critics, people who have said that, they don't believe parts of your story or they think your story is inconsistent. How have you dealt with that, and how do you respond to critics when you come across them?
So there's two different ones. So one critic was before I wrote my first book, In Order to Live. And the one critic is now who is activated because they think I'm the darling of the Fox News, So let's talk about the first critic before the book. There was some of the logic because my English was really not good at the time. I literally learned English watching Friends, the TV show in South Korea. I watched the season 1 to 10 for 30 times. 240 episodes of Friends, you get English eventually. But not that great. When I was describing that I ate grass initially, I just looked the word pur in Korea, and the English word came out grass. Later, I understood nuance was is a plant. I did not eat grass like a horse, I ate the plants. And when I escaping through that track of the mountain that I went through, they went to the Google Earth and checked the altitude that I climbed. For me, I was 13 years old. I'm not 80 pounds. I was 50 pounds at the time. I thought it was a mountain. But according to clear science, it's technically a hill. It's not a mountain. I don't know what altitude you decide to be a hill or mountain. They decide that. The third part was very logical was, I was writing this book 19, 20 years old in South Korea. And I don't know how many of you have been to South Korea or Asian countries. It's a very conservative country. And if I said that I was a sex slave for 2 years of my life, no normal guy would marry me. Because in Korea, it's virginity is very important. So I wanted to have family. As you can see, I'm a mother. That's my dream was being a mom. And I really, thank you. So I didn't lie initially that I didn't get raped. My parents protected me. But by the time when I was writing the book, I didn't realize without the full truth, my story cannot have any power. So I wrote everything in the book. So that part is gone after the book. There's not even one person ever challenged. And Penguin Random House is not stupid. They sent the legal team and my co-author, and they interviewed women who escaped the desert with me, grew up in North Korea. They had the voice recordings of these people because they might misremember later, 10 years later. So we still have those recordings of these people. Now the people who are criticizing me, they think that somehow I'm a CIA spy. They think I am taking money from the US government to spread the socialist propaganda. And I was literally canceled by FBI. I was invited to speak last year at FBI in Dallas or Houston. 2 days before my event, the head of diversity calls me. Because of your political opinions, we cannot have you as a speaker. And the funny thing was, I became American last year, and in my citizenship interview, this lady asked me, have you ever persecuted anybody for their political opinion? If I said yes, I could not become American. So FBI, they need to give their citizenship back to America. They don't even know, yes, they don't even know what it means to be American because they never took the citizenship, they never earned this freedom. They were born, they're given to it, and they're abusing their freedom right now. So right now, all this criticism, I don't even engage it because, I hope CIA calls me and get my feedback on their policy, but they never call me. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know how to engage on that level, yeah.
We're just about out of time, but I have one final question from one of our audience members that I want to ask you. What is your American dream?
It initially was freedom. I thought of freedom as a young girl. I could wear earrings. I can dye my hair. I can watch any movie I want. I can marry anybody I want. But I view freedom a bit differently now after living here some time. I think freedom without virtue, it's anarchy. Freedom requires the responsibility that comes with it. And so many people understand freedom as something, whatever you can do, whatever you want to do. You can shooting up yourself with the heroin on the street, smoking pot right next to children, somehow they think that's freedom. And that's why I came to the Bible. That's why I sent my son to Catholic school and go to church, because we need that virtue. And we have tried to fill that void of the morality and virtue with the government, the woke religion, anything. It seems it doesn't fill us with the good things eventually. And I go back to everybody else did before came to me on this earth, going back to scripture and try to find that moral compass myself. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Yeonmi Park for an incredible presentation this evening. We're so grateful for you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure.
So this.
You're so kind. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. And then just get up.
Careful.
Should I go down there? Okay. Thank you.
Real quick. This concludes tonight's formal program. As a reminder, continental breakfast will be served here tomorrow morning starting at 8 a.m. Classes begin promptly at 9 a.m. Again, please remember to wear your name tag. You're going to need that to get into everything where you need to go. I now invite you to join us for hospitality out in the lobby. Thank you and have a good evening.